Hello, I hear you're going to be starting on a project where you're going to be trying to draw what it might be like if you were to travel to another planet. And there's a lot of interesting things to think about when you get off of planet Earth. We are so used to spending, our whole lives here on planet Earth, mostly looking down at where we're going, but there's a whole many other things out there in the universe and other planets that we're just starting to discover, and it can be very different than what conditions here are on Earth. So one of the things that you should think about when you're getting ready to do this project is really spend some time making up some sketches and trying to think about what it could be like on this other planet. Just within our own solar system, there's many diverse planets and moons that we're just starting to understand. We're used to looking up into the sky and seeing just one moon at night that changes phases. But you could be on other planets like Jupiter and Saturn and things like that have many more moons that go around them, and you could see several moons in the sky, and they could always be changing positions as you go through time. Another consideration is how close are you to your parent star. We're at this 93 million mile distance from our sun, and that stays pretty much the same, but many other solar systems have more than one sun that sometimes orbit around each other. So you could be on a planet that actually has two suns in the sky. So there's things to look at with this. You could be on a planet where maybe there was a collision a long time ago of two moons, and it created this beautiful ring system going around your planet, and that could be something you could work into your picture. Maybe you're going to go explore one of the gas giant planets, and you're not actually even going to land on that planet, but you're going to maybe be in some kind of spacecraft or balloon-like structure that will just basically float around, and you can take scientific samples of the atmosphere. Maybe you're going to go onto a planet like Europa and go under the ice and explore a water world. There again, it's hard to say. Are you going to Maybe there's a surface underneath there, or maybe it's just all liquid inside. So a lot of cool opportunities with this project. So I think what we're going to talk about here is a little bit about some of the supplies you can use for this project. So that's what we'll talk about. So when it comes to using supplies for this project, in the example that I made for you that you're going to see a little bit later on, is basically using all just common, ordinary art supplies. I really didn't use anything that was unusual or very expensive. Set of markers, some colored pencils. Pastels can be very handy, and if you don't have pastels, I know sometimes they even sell these at the dollar store very inexpensively. Scissors, erasers, a glue stick is very handy for the kind of technique that I'm going to show you. And for my star technique, basically what I've used is just a little bit of paint. You could also use whiteout, but the really good trick to the stars is don't use the brush or any kind of a brush to do your stars. What I do is I have this little tiny wooden, it's kind of like a Q-tip, and I break the fuzzy end off because I don't use that. And I just use this little tiny wooden piece right here that I will dip into the paint to create the stars with. And this works really nice because it makes different size stars, and they're usually nice and round as long as you take your time and just touch it down to the surface and don't try to go too fast with it. And for the project that I was using, I used a piece of black 12 by 18 construction paper, which is basically will be your black outer space. That's one of the hardest things that I notice when kids in art class try to do an outer space type picture, is they just spend so much time trying to color in a background jet black. This is a whole lot easier. You just start with the black background, and then we overlay the other items on top of that. So now what we'll do is we'll show you sort of the techniques and sort of the whole process of what we use for this. So some of the first things to do, of course, is some sketching. And obviously you want to be using a pencil and not a pen, and you'd really like to start out by drawing very lightly so that you can correct any mistakes. You've heard me say that over and over again in art class, and it's just will save you a lot of time. Think about when you're doing your project, try to think about it in three parts. as there being a background to the picture, and this is really the farthest away things in your picture. It may be out near the horizon of your planet and the outer space and what's in the space out there, the suns and moons and things like that, other stars. Think about the background. And then you have the middle ground area, and then you have foreground. Foreground would be the things that are closest to you. Now, you're going to be putting a lot of geological features in here as you go along, and that probably would be the first thing that you should draw, is the actual landscape of the planet. And then you might very well be drawing the way you're going to be exploring this planet. You may have like little vehicles or rovers, or part of a space colony that might already be established on this planet. You might want to think carefully about where you're going to put those things. One real common thing that people often do is they always center things right in the center. But a lot of professional artists stay away from that dead center of the picture, and they'll try to move things a little bit off center. In fact, there's a thing called the rule of thirds, which basically divides the paper into thirds vertically and horizontally, and then where those points intersect, which is approximately about where my fingertips are here. These are hot spots, and these are great places to make like focal points on your project. So one thing that you can do with this project is we can make it sort of like in layers, separate layers. So again, I said here's like the black outer space part. You can start with that, and then on a separate piece of paper you can draw out part of your landscape. And so I just drew this out in pencil, got a pair of scissors, and cut around the planet here, and then we have this as a separate piece. And this does not get attached to the black outer space until very, very close to the very end. You don't want to put this on right away, because what you can do with this is you can do all your color work on here separately. Now, the one that I'm going to show you now probably took about 40 minutes to complete. And this is the finished project here. And again, this was done in layers and pieces. So I just have these paper clipped on here for now. And so if we take this apart, if we kind of deconstruct it, I can take these mountains off at the moment here. This brown piece was also separate. All right, so this was done separate and independent of the background. Because if you start doing pastel, you're going to get it all over the black outer space. It probably won't look that good. So this was completely done individually. We kind of laid it on here and got an idea of where our stars are going to be. All right, and as you're doing it, you can lay these pieces on, okay, just to take a look at how it's coming along, and you can easily make little adjustments. But again, look at the nice effect we have of background, and then sort of the middle ground in here, foreground areas up close. And we have like a sun here with a little bit of a chromosphere around the outside, and other planets kind of looking a little Jupiter-like with a red spot in here. And these are the stars that were basically done just dabbing them on with this little stick. If you have a toothpick at home, especially if you can cut it off so it's not so pointy, that can work very nicely.